chosen one, pay attention for a moment. There is a quiet strength within you that God has been using to carry you through seasons you barely had words for, and perhaps you have been misunderstanding that strength all along. You call it weakness, confusion, exhaustion, sensitivity, maybe even something being wrong with you, when deep inside there was another story unfolding. Listen closely, because what you are beginning to understand may change the way you look at yourself, especially when you remember how many times you kept going without knowing where that strength came from. There were moments when you could not protect yourself, yet somehow you found the strength to keep moving. There were moments when you felt lost, yet something inside you kept turning you away from what would have harmed you and toward what you needed next. The heaviness you have carried has felt real, but it does not have to mean that you are failing. Sometimes a season can feel heavy because something within you is being awakened and shaped. What God placed in you long ago may be becoming visible to you now, and that awakening can feel unfamiliar before it ever feels empowering. Type AMEN if you agree. Think about those nights when everything around you was quiet, yet your mind kept searching for an answer you could not quite name. You wondered why your body felt different, why your spirit could not settle, why you noticed things other people seemed able to overlook, and why your heart sometimes reacted before you had a reason for it. You questioned yourself because you wanted an explanation that would make everything feel ordinary again. And maybe you even wondered whether you were somehow the problem. But perhaps what you have been experiencing deserves to be understood with more compassion, because your sensitivity, your awareness, and that deep inner knowing have been part of your story for a long time. Chosen one, you made it spent years trying to make yourself easier for other people to understand. You learned when to stay quiet, when to smile, when to say you were fine, even when something inside you was asking for space. And there is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from constantly explaining feelings that you cannot fully put into words, especially when the people around you simply cannot feel what you feel. This is why this moment matters. What has felt like confusion may be leading you toward discernment, and what once made you question yourself may be teaching you how to listen more carefully. Remember the times you walked into a place and suddenly wanted to leave, even though everything appeared perfectly normal on the surface. Remember the person you slowly pulled away from without being able to explain the decision, or the path you almost followed before something inside you made you hesitate. Maybe at the time you called it overthinking, fear, or uncertainty, but later you saw something you could not see before. Sometimes protection does not arrive as a loud warning. Sometimes it feels like a quiet change in direction that only makes sense when you look back. That is where the mystery begins, because there are moments in your life whose meaning becomes clear only after the danger has passed. You have also known what it feels like to become drained without knowing exactly why. You wondered whether you were becoming weaker, whether you were carrying too much, whether something inside you had changed in a way you could not understand. But perhaps you have been carrying more emotional weight than you realized, noticing what goes unspoken, absorbing the atmosphere around you, and feeling things that other people could simply walk past. That kind of awareness can become exhausting when you have never learned how to protect your own peace. And part of your awakening is learning that sensitivity can be accompanied by discernment rather than self-doubt. Type 11 if you believe. You have asked for answers in quiet moments, perhaps with no one around to hear the questions you were carrying. You wanted clarity, you wanted relief, and more than anything, you wanted some sign that you were not losing yourself. But what if you are not losing yourself at all? What if you are beginning to recognize a part of yourself that has been there, beneath the noise, beneath the expectations, beneath all the years you spent trying to become who everyone else needed you to be? The power within you does not need to announce itself. It can move quietly, almost unnoticed, guiding you through decisions you did not fully understand and protecting you in ways you only recognize afterward. Think about the doors that closed, the plans that changed, the people you could not keep following, and the moments when you suddenly knew you needed to go another way. At the time, some of those changes may have felt like disappointment, but today you may be able to see pieces of a pattern that were invisible before. Perhaps what looked like coincidence was part of a deeper process of being guided, one step at a time, even when you could not see the whole road. And that is why your isolation has carried such a strange weight. There were seasons when you felt forgotten, when you watched other people continue with their lives while you seemed to be standing still, quietly trying to understand what was happening inside you. Yet some of the deepest preparation happens when nobody is watching, in quiet rooms, in unanswered prayers, in ordinary days when you are simply trying to make it through. God can shape you in places where there is little applause and very little explanation, teaching you to recognize what is yours to carry and what you were never meant to carry for everyone else. There were days when your energy felt gone, your mind was tired, and your spirit felt too heavy to explain. You may have looked at yourself and wondered why you could not simply move forward like everyone else. But your journey was never meant to be measured by someone else's pace. Some seasons stretch you before they strengthen you, and some waiting periods are doing work inside you that cannot be rushed. What felt like falling apart may have also been the moment you were learning how much you could endure without abandoning yourself. You are being prepared for a deeper level of awareness and strength, and preparation rarely feels as beautiful while you are living through it as it does when you finally understand what it was doing. This message is not asking you to fear what you feel. It is asking you to look at yourself with greater tenderness. You are a chosen one, and the meaning of that identity is not that every difficult feeling has to be turned into a sign, but that you can begin listening to your life with greater trust and discernment. What has felt unfamiliar may be revealing something sacred about the way you are learning to move through the world. So from this moment forward, be careful with the way you speak about yourself. You have carried enough moments of calling yourself broken, too sensitive, too difficult, too different, or somehow behind everyone else. What God has been developing in you does not need to be understood by everyone around you before it becomes meaningful to you. Even when you could not make sense of your own journey, something deeper kept drawing you forward, and that may be part of the reason you are still standing after everything you have walked through. There were times when you felt as though you did not belong, when you tried to blend in and behave like everyone else, because being different felt easier to hide than to explain. You tried to quiet that inner pull, but it kept returning, especially in the moments when the outside world became quiet enough for you to hear yourself again. Perhaps that feeling was never asking you to become superior to anyone. Perhaps it was simply reminding you that your life cannot be built entirely around other people's expectations. You are beginning to understand that becoming yourself may require releasing the version of you that spent years trying to be understood by everyone. And the tiredness you have carried may reach deeper than the body alone. It can come from constantly noticing what remains unspoken, feeling emotional shifts before anyone names them, and carrying an awareness that you have not always known how to put into language. There is a loneliness in sensing something clearly while having no words that make another person understand why it matters to you. But perhaps this is where your awakening becomes more personal, learning to honor what you feel without allowing every feeling to control you, and learning to recognize the difference between fear, exhaustion, intuition, and the quiet discernment God has been teaching you. Type 222 to claim miracles. There were moments when you wondered if something was wrong with you, simply because you needed to pull away. You wanted quiet, fewer conversations, a little space where you could finally hear yourself again, yet people around you may have called you distant, strange, or difficult to understand because they could not see what was happening beneath the surface. What they could not see was how much you had been carrying, how deeply certain environments affected you, and how necessary that silence sometimes became. You were learning how to step back, breathe, recover, and protect the part of you that had been giving more than anyone realized. Chosen one, there have also been paths you simply could not continue walking, even when you had no explanation for why. You may remember entering a place that looked perfectly normal and suddenly feeling that you needed to leave, or being around someone and sensing that distance was necessary before you could explain it logically. At the time, you may have questioned yourself because you had no evidence, no clear reason, nothing you could easily put into words. Yet sometimes protection begins as a quiet discomfort, a gentle resistance within you that asks you to pause before you understand what you are being protected from. And then there were those moments when clarity came almost unexpectedly. A thought appeared at just the right time, a decision suddenly felt obvious, or something inside you seemed to say, "Go this way," even though you could not explain why. You may have looked back later and realized that the decision changed something important, perhaps keeping you from a situation that would have drained you or led you somewhere you were never meant to remain. That is where your anointing begins to feel less like an idea and more like something you have actually experienced. The wisdom God placed within you has been quietly teaching you that uncertainty around you does not mean you are without direction. Think about what you have already survived. There were storms you once believed would leave you permanently changed, seasons that seemed capable of taking more from you than you had left to give, and yet somehow you came through them carrying a strength you did not know you possessed. Maybe you called it luck because you could not explain it. Or maybe you simply kept moving because stopping was never an option. But when you look back now, you may begin to notice how many times you were guided, covered, and strengthened in ways you only understood afterward. The quiet power within you has been present, even in the moments when you felt the least powerful. Sometimes you have wondered why you feel everything so deeply. Why does your heart react so strongly when someone else seems completely unaffected, and why can you not simply brush certain things aside the way other people appear to? There may have been days when you wished you could become less sensitive just so life would feel easier, less complicated, less exhausting. But perhaps you are beginning to see that sensitivity itself is not the whole story. When it is paired with wisdom and discernment, it can help you notice what needs your attention and recognize when something in your life no longer feels aligned. Type yes to receive miracles. There were also times when you questioned your own mind because you did not trust what you were sensing. You wondered whether you were thinking too much, reading too deeply into something, or imagining a feeling that had no real explanation. So you tried to push it aside and act as though it did not matter. Yet the feeling kept returning, quietly asking you to pay attention. Chosen one, part of your growth is learning how to listen without becoming ruled by every emotion, and learning to recognize the difference between anxiety, exhaustion, intuition, and that steady inner knowing that continues to speak with quiet persistence. You have been in situations where everything looked fine from the outside, yet something within you told you to be careful. You may not have had proof, and you may not have been able to explain your hesitation to anyone else, but you felt enough within yourself to slow down or step away. Later, perhaps, you understood why. What you once dismissed as being overly sensitive may have been teaching you to pay attention, and what you once doubted may have been the beginning of discernment. This is part of the quiet protection God has been developing within you, helping you notice what your eyes cannot always recognize immediately. You have also carried a heart that wants to help. There were people you listened to when you were already exhausted, people you comforted while quietly needing comfort yourself, and moments when you gave your time and presence without receiving the same kind of care in return. You may have wondered why you keep pouring so much of yourself into others, even when you know you are running low. Your capacity to uplift people is part of what has been placed within you, but your growth now includes learning that compassion does not require you to empty yourself completely. This is where balance becomes part of your awakening. You are learning that sometimes love means stepping forward, and sometimes love means stepping back. Sometimes you are meant to give, and sometimes you are meant to become still enough to receive. You are learning that protecting your energy does not make your heart smaller, and resting does not mean you have stopped caring. It means you are becoming wiser about what you carry, where you place your attention, and how you use the strength God has placed inside you. You are not meant to remain confused about yourself forever. The more honestly you begin to understand what you feel, the more clearly you can recognize what deserves your attention and what can be released. The more you learn to trust yourself with wisdom and patience, the less you will lead everyone around you to validate what you already know within. Something is shifting in you, and perhaps the first sign of that shift is that you are beginning to look at the same experiences through different eyes. Even now, you may be starting to recognize that some of the things you once feared about yourself have also taught you strength. You can look back at the times you withdrew, the moments you changed direction, the instinct you almost ignored, and the seasons when you needed more solitude than other people understood, and begin to see a pattern. What once felt like a collection of strange experiences may be becoming part of a larger story of awakening. The quiet power within you may still feel unfamiliar at times, but you are learning that its purpose is not always revealed all at once. And chosen one, you do not have to understand every part of this journey today. I am with you in the quiet moments, in the questions you still carry, and in the places where you are learning to trust what God has been forming within you. You are being shaped with patience, strengthened through experience, and guided toward a deeper understanding of who you are. What once felt like confusion is beginning to become awareness, and what once made you question yourself may be teaching you how to walk forward with greater clarity. From this point forward, you may begin noticing your life with a different kind of clarity. Things that once seemed disconnected may start forming a pattern, and you may find yourself looking back at old decisions, sudden changes, and moments of unexpected knowing with a deeper understanding. You will begin to trust yourself more gently, not because you suddenly have every answer, but because you are finally recognizing how many times you were carried through something you could not understand at the time. What you have lived through has meaning, and even the seasons that felt empty were shaping you for the moment when you would finally be able to see them differently. Think about the moments when a path suddenly closed, when something you wanted slipped away, or when you felt pulled in another direction without knowing what waited there. At the time, some of those experiences may have felt painful, confusing, or deeply unfair, but with distance, you may begin to notice how certain pieces fit together. The clarity may come quietly, almost like watching a scattered collection of memories finally form one picture. What once looked like random interruptions may begin to feel like part of the preparation that taught you how to carry your anointing with greater maturity and understanding. This is where something inside you begins to change. Fear can slowly become awareness, and the confusion that once made you question yourself can begin turning into a deeper sense of purpose. You have spent so much time explaining your feelings to people who could not feel what you felt, softening your experiences so they would sound more ordinary, and trying to make yourself easier to understand so you would not stand out. But chosen one, you are beginning to realize that you do not have to keep shrinking your experience simply to make other people comfortable with it. What you carry may not always fit neatly into everyday explanations, and you are learning to make peace with that. There is something deeply spiritual about the way you have been learning to listen, to notice, and to recognize what is happening beneath the surface of your life. This does not mean you need to prove anything to anyone. It means you can finally stop treating every part of yourself that feels different as something that needs to be hidden. Type 777. If you trust God. You may also notice that places which once felt comfortable begin to feel different. A room can look exactly the same and still leave you feeling strangely heavy, and a conversation that used to feel easy can suddenly leave you exhausted afterward. You may find yourself wanting more space from certain environments or people, not because you hate them, but because you are becoming more aware of what leaves you peaceful and what quietly takes something from you. As your awareness deepens, you may become more careful about where you place your time, your attention, and your emotional energy, and something else may become clearer. Your intuition may begin to feel less like a distant whisper and more like a quiet knowing. You may sense a change in someone before they explain it, recognize when a situation is shifting before anyone else notices, or suddenly know that a particular decision is not right for you, even when everything looks fine on the surface. Chosen one, this is something to approach with wisdom rather than fear, because discernment becomes stronger when you learn to listen without allowing every passing emotion to control you. The more calmly you listen, the easier it becomes to recognize that steady inner voice. There were times when you trusted everyone else's logic over what you were feeling inside. You may have talked yourself out of an instinct, stayed longer than you wanted to stay, or ignored that quiet hesitation because you needed someone else to tell you that your feelings were valid. Sometimes you only understood the lesson afterward, when the consequences made you realize what your intuition had been trying to show you. But this is not a message meant to make you live in regret. It is an invitation to remember, to learn, and to become more attentive to yourself as you move forward. You are learning that inner knowing does not ask you to live in fear. It asks you to become present enough to notice what your spirit, your experience, and your wisdom are telling you. And as that trust grows, something else begins to happen. You become less willing to abandon your own peace simply to keep someone else comfortable. You begin to understand that a boundary can be quiet, loving, and firm all at once. There may come a time when you no longer feel compelled to explain every decision you make. You may stop staying in conversations that leave you depleted, stop chasing approval from people who have already decided not to understand you, and stop confusing keeping the peace with protecting your own well-being. At first, that may feel uncomfortable because you have spent so long measuring yourself through other people's reactions. But choosing peace is part of your growth, and protecting what God has placed within you can be an act of reverence rather than selfishness. Tite 1:22. If you walk by faith, there is a strength rising within you that may still feel unfamiliar because it is quieter than the strength you once imagined you needed. It does not need to prove itself, compete for attention, or convince anyone that it belongs. It simply remains steady when circumstances become uncertain. The same strength that helped you survive difficult seasons is beginning to become something more than endurance, and you are slowly learning how to let it carry you forward with confidence. You are also beginning to understand that growth can change the relationships around you. Some people may not recognize the person you are becoming, and some may question your choices simply because they were more comfortable with the version of you who explained everything, tolerated everything, or always made room for everyone else. That can hurt, especially when you once believed those connections would remain unchanged. But sometimes a relationship changes because you are changing the way you show up inside it. What feels like distance can sometimes be a realignment with the person you are becoming. And as old patterns loosen, you may begin making room for connections that feel different. People who respect your quiet, who do not require constant explanation, and who can be present with you without making you feel like you have to perform or prove your worth, may naturally become more meaningful in your life. You will recognize the difference because there is less tension in those relationships and more room to breathe. You do not have to force belonging where it does not exist. The right connections can feel like places where your nervous system finally remembers what peace feels like. You have also been learning something that the world rarely teaches well: the value of stillness. Everything around you tells you to move faster, answer immediately, accomplish more, and keep filling every quiet space with noise. But there are things within you that can only be heard when you stop running long enough to listen. Some of your clearest moments may come when the room is quiet, your phone is down, and there is nothing demanding your attention. In that stillness, you begin to hear what constant movement was covering, and you begin to understand things that no explanation from another person could ever fully teach you. There were seasons when you honestly wondered if you were falling behind, watching other people move ahead while your own life seemed strangely still. But what you could not see then was that your path was never measured by how quickly you arrived. It was being shaped by depth, by patience, by the kind of growth that takes place quietly while everyone else seems to be moving. While others were rushing forward, you were being prepared in places no one could see, learning lessons that could only come through time, waiting, and becoming. Now you are beginning to understand that you were never behind. You were being positioned. Every delay, every pause, every season that made you wonder when your turn would come was shaping your alignment with what is meant for you. And as you keep walking, you will begin to recognize why some things had to take longer than you wanted. The quiet power within you has always carried protection, but you are beginning to see that it also carries direction. It has been gently steering you toward experiences, opportunities, and connections that fit the person you are becoming, even when you could not understand where you were being led. You are entering a different part of your journey, one where you slowly stop asking what is wrong with you and start seeing the depth of what you carry, the way you feel, the way you notice things, the way certain moments speak to you before you can explain them. These are becoming less like burdens and more like parts of yourself you finally know how to honor. And as that realization settles into you, something changes in your confidence. It is not a confidence that needs to announce itself or prove anything to anyone. It is quieter than that, more settled, like finally exhaling after holding your breath for years. You begin to know that you are where you need to be, even when the road ahead remains unclear, because you have learned that divine guidance does not always come with a complete explanation. This kind of certainty cannot be taken from you by someone's opinion, rejection, or lack of understanding, because it is no longer built on their approval. It is rooted in what you have lived, what you have survived, and what you have slowly come to understand about yourself. From here, your journey continues with a deeper awareness. Challenges will still come, but you will begin meeting them from a different place, no longer assuming every difficult season means you have taken the wrong path. You will start recognizing how certain experiences have stretched you, strengthened you, and revealed parts of yourself that remained hidden before. Your sensitivity, your awareness, your instincts, and that quiet strength you have carried for so long are not separate pieces of your story. They are woven together, guiding you toward a life you are only beginning to recognize. You are not wandering through this alone. Even when you cannot see the next step, there is still a sense within you that keeps saying, keep going. There were moments when what you carried felt too deep to explain, even to yourself. You tried to put the feeling into words, but something about it always seemed to escape language, especially when you noticed yourself reacting strongly to situations that appeared ordinary to everyone else, while others could walk away untouched. You might carry the atmosphere of long after you had left it. Perhaps this is why you have spent so much time questioning yourself, wondering whether you were simply overthinking what you felt. But some things are understood through awareness before they are understood through logic. Type 222. If you receive this, you're beginning to notice that your presence itself can affect a space, even when you say very little. Some people seem to relax around you, while others become uncomfortable without knowing exactly why, because something about your presence can bring what has been hidden closer to the surface. That can feel strange when you are used to making yourself smaller, so other people can remain comfortable. But you are learning to stand in who you are, with a quieter kind of confidence, without needing to make yourself easier for everyone else to understand. There were places where you felt invisible, and others where you felt like too much. The truth is, you were never meant to measure your worth by how easily other people could recognize your depth. You have also noticed how often people seem to find their way toward you when they are hurting. They may come looking for comfort, understanding, or simply a place where they can breathe without having to explain every part of themselves. You may not always know what to say, yet somehow your presence can bring a sense of peace. That is part of the anointing you have been learning to carry with greater wisdom, but you are also learning something just as important. Giving from an empty place eventually leaves you exhausted. You cannot keep pouring yourself into everyone while ignoring your own need for stillness, restoration, and care. You are meant to be a light, but you are not meant to destroy yourself trying to keep everyone else warm. Type 777 to affirm your faith. And now, another kind of courage is beginning to rise within you. It is not loud and it does not need an audience. It is the quiet courage that lets you leave what no longer feels right without spending hours defending your decision. It is the courage to speak honestly even when your voice trembles, to honor what you know inside even when someone else cannot understand it. This strength has been growing in the same quiet places where your awareness was formed, and now you are beginning to notice it for yourself. You will trust your decisions more, even when they look unfamiliar to the people around you. You will spend less time waiting for permission to move forward, because you are beginning to understand that the path of the chosen one will not always make sense to everyone watching from the outside. And the more deeply you trust yourself, the more clearly you begin to recognize what is truly aligned with you. There were seasons when you felt delayed, almost as if life kept moving around you while you remained in the same place. You watched other people reach milestones, make progress, and step into things you had been waiting for, and quietly wondered why your life seemed to move at a different pace. What you could not see then was that you were being prepared for something that needed deeper roots. You were not being held back. You were being strengthened in places that could not be rushed. And now you are beginning to feel the direction of your life changing. Things will begin to meet you differently. Opportunities may appear with a sense of ease that you did not experience before, and you will notice yourself forcing less, chasing less, and recognizing more. It will feel as though something inside you and something outside you are finally beginning to agree. That kind of alignment brings a peace you may have almost forgotten was possible. You are also becoming more careful about what receives your time, your attention, and your energy, because you are starting to understand that everything does not deserve access to you. This is not isolation. This is clarity. You are learning what nourishes your growth and becoming willing to release what continually pulls you away from yourself. It will still be moments when you question your decisions, but those moments will no longer control you the way they once did. You are learning to pause before reacting, to listen before deciding, and to move from trust rather than fear. The quiet power within you is teaching you how to remain steady in situations that once would have overwhelmed you, and you are beginning to notice the difference in yourself. You will respond with clarity where confusion once took over. You will recognize what is happening around you without allowing every situation to pull you into its emotional current. This is growth, and much of it is happening because you are finally understanding yourself. A deeper peace is settling into you now, perhaps slowly, perhaps unevenly, but unmistakably. It does not depend on everything around you becoming perfect. It comes from knowing that even when the path is uncertain, you are still being guided, protected, and held through it. You are also stepping into a stronger sense of who you are. Other people's opinions are beginning to lose their power over your identity, because you are learning to see yourself through what you know, rather than through what you have been told. That changes the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, and the way you respond when life tests you. You are no longer moving through every moment, simply reacting to whatever happens next. You are becoming more intentional, more aware, and more willing to follow the quiet direction within you. This is what it means to begin walking with purpose. Things that once felt impossible to understand are starting to make more sense, and burdens that once felt unbearable are becoming easier to carry. Even the experiences that made you question yourself are beginning to reveal what they built inside you. You are not standing where you stood before. You have become more aware, more grounded, and more aligned with the person you have been growing into all along. The truth is settling deeper now. You are beginning to recognize that what you carry has meaning, that the quiet power within you has been guiding and preparing you through seasons you did not understand. And as you accept that more fully, you may begin to notice your life reflecting the strength that has been developing beneath the surface. For a long time, you may have filled every quiet moment with noise, tasks, conversations, or distractions, because silence gave your thoughts room to become louder. But now, you are discovering something different. Silence can become the place where clarity finally reaches you. Type 15-7 to receive blessings. You are also beginning to notice that your reactions are changing. Situations that once pulled you into fear or frustration may still happen, but they no longer have the same grip on you. You can pause, breathe, observe what is happening, and choose your response with a calmness that even surprises you. Life has not necessarily become easier. You have simply become stronger, and the quiet power within you is teaching you how to remain standing when circumstances try to shake you. There have been moments when you looked back and asked why certain things had to happen the way they did. You questioned the pain, the confusion, the isolation, and the seasons, when you felt completely alone in what you were carrying. But now you are beginning to see those experiences through different eyes. They were shaping a foundation inside you, one strong enough to hold the person you are becoming. You are no longer the person who questions every feeling or second-guesses every decision. You are becoming someone who can listen inwardly, even when other people cannot understand what you sense. That kind of trust takes time. It grows through experience, through mistakes, through reflection, and through remembering how often your inner knowing led you somewhere important. Little by little, you stop needing constant proof before honoring what you already feel. Patience is growing alongside that trust as well. You are learning that everything does not need to be figured out today, and that some answers arrive more clearly when you stop demanding them before their time. This patience is protecting you from choices made in panic, pressure, or the fear of being left behind. It is teaching you to move with intention instead of urgency, to let things unfold without assuming that waiting means nothing is happening. Type 222 to claim miracles. You may have noticed that your connection to what is within you feels stronger now, even though you are not forcing it or chasing after it. It has been there quietly, and when you slow down enough to listen, you can feel that inner direction waiting for you. This connection is not something you suddenly created. It has been present through every season, but now you are becoming conscious of it. And that awareness changes the way you move through your life. There will still be moments when doubt returns, when old fears and familiar patterns try to pull you toward what once felt safe. But those thoughts do not have to become your direction. You are learning to recognize them, let them pass, and choose differently. Because growth does not mean doubt disappears forever. It means you no longer allow doubt to decide where you go.